My name is Vanessa Law, and in this video I will be analyzing the poem The Origin of the Species by Lorna Crozier. Lorna Crozier is a poet who was born in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada, and in her poetry she often writes on themes of nature, relationships, abuse, feminism, and religion. It is important to note that in her poetry, Lorna Crozier often advocates for animals and for women, as she feels that in our world and our society today, animals and women do not have a voice. Just in general, before we start, this poem is 10 stanzas long with 3 lines per stanza, very consistently, but there is no rhyme structure, so it's free verse. Lorna Crozier uses allusion, alliteration, symbolism, metaphor, imagery, and irony in this poem to show the theme, which I thought was growth and empowerment despite the odds. Starting off, the first literary device can actually be found in the title, which is The Origin of the Species. This is a reference, an allusion to Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, which is a work in which he explains his theory of evolution. This contributes to the theme, as evolution can be seen as growth despite the odds because of natural selection, can be seen as the odds, natural disasters, and everything contributing to extinction of certain species and the continuation and evolution of other species. The first stanza of the poem is actually not a part of the poem. It is a quote from Cormac McCarthy and from his novel All the Pretty Horses. This is seen as a bit odd, as quotes are not usually inserted into poems, but the quote reads, "But the old man only said that it was pointless to speak of there being no horses in the world, for God would not permit such a thing." Already there is reference to 2 of Lorna Crozier's most written about themes, which are nature and religion. It isn't said what this quote is for, although it can be inferred that this provided some sort of inspiration for the rest of the poem. Starting off, the first stanza reads, "Drenched with dawn, Eohippus, smaller than a fox, walked out of chaos." The first literary device is alliteration, and this strong D sound shows the strength of the subject in the poem, which is Eohippus. This is Eohippus, and Eohippus is actually what the horse is said to have evolved out of. So, Eohippus, smaller than a fox, walked out of chaos. So this alliteration shows the strength of Eohippus, and the next literary device is symbolism. Dawn symbolizes hope, illumination, beginning, and potential, and this Eohippus, this small animal, smaller than a fox, is drenched with it. So it symbolizes the growth and empowerment possible despite the odds, because Eohippus is a small animal. In addition to this, it says that Eohippus walked out of chaos, and chaos is something seen as huge and dangerous, and it is worth noting that many cultures believe that life and earth came out of chaos. So, despite the odds, despite this huge chaos, Eohippus walked out of it, despite being so small. And Eohippus can, because of this, the connotation of chaos, that life and earth can come from chaos, it shows the importance of Eohippus. In the next stanza, the extended metaphor is started, as it is written that she struck the sand. Water gushed from her hoofprint, drops flying through the air. Now, by writing that Eohippus is a she, and also by using the S alliteration, she struck the sand, which is often S is a feminine sound, this shows that Eohippus represents women in this poem, so the growth and empowerment of women despite the odds. This is an extended metaphor that is continued throughout the poem. Next it says, "Water gushed from her hoofprint, drops flying through the air." Water is symbolism again, and it represents life. So just from her hoofprint, Eohippus, which represents women, there's life coming from this animal. So continuing on, drops flying through the air, and where they fell, the sky came down to rest, and 1,000 miracles of grass meadowed the desert. So Lorna Crozier is using imagery, and this imagery is very abstract. So the drops flying through the air and where they fell to create miracles of grass in the desert. This kind of language and imagery can be paralleled to ancient origin stories of many cultures, and they use the same kind of language, which could be a reference to origin stories. And basically, this imagery and this language that is being used in the next few stanzas emphasizes the beauty and the growth and empowerment of the subject in the poem. Then, in the end of the fourth stanza, there is a time change because it says 4 centuries Eohippus lived satisfied and self-contained. So this represents a change. So it says then, and then her legs and muzzle lengthened. Muscles pushed against her withers thickened her neck. This can be said to be showing literally the evolution because of the allusion to Charles Darwin's evolutionary theory, but it could also contribute to the theme of growth and empowerment despite the odds. So this animal that previously was said to be smaller than a fox is said to be growing muscles pushed against her withers thickened her neck. It's worth noting that the neck is connected to the spine, and when someone has a backbone, they get stronger and can stand up for themselves. Now ready for the wind, she made it lean and boneless, its mane and tail visible across the sky. So wind represents possibility. So now that although Eohippus was already drenched with dawn, Eohippus was still smaller than a fox, not ready for this possibility. So now that Eohippus has grown, Eohippus and women are ready for this possibility. Then Lorna Crozier writes, imagine horse and wind running in the sun's warm pasture before the fall. This could have 2 meanings because of, it's a double entendre for fall. So imagine horse and wind, so woman and possibility running in the sun's warm pasture before the fall. Fall could mean either the season or it could mean downfall, so before the fall. Imagine the 2 of them alone adrift in the absolute beatitude of grass, no insect biting, no rope or bridle. This reference again to grass shows life, and Lorna Crozier is using, again, extended metaphor throughout to show that the possibility, what can happen when women and possibility are left without insect biting, no rope or bridle, without pain or without restraints. Continuing on, she writes, in the mornings of that lost and long ago beginning, nothing broken or in need of breaking. So this last stanza shows balance and content. In the morning shows new beginnings, and throughout the whole poem, Lorna Crozier is speaking about how women have strengthened and the possibilities that what can happen in society if women and possibility are left alone without any restraints.